Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Cincinnati Bengals are seemingly no closer to signing Shemar Stewart, their first-round pick, than when they drafted him. So what's the holdup exactly? Also, young Hansen could end up being a draft day steal for the Portland Trailblazers, and Scottie Scheffler is trying to understand the point of winning just moments before the Open Championship.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
This has been an offseason of pass rusher discontent around the NFL, perhaps nowhere more acutely felt than in Cincinnati, where Trey Hendrickson is still looking for a new contract. And right now, the first-round pick for the Cincinnati Bengals, Shemar Stewart, is stuck on what he wants in his contract. Jake Lisco from Locked On Bengals, who may want to renegotiate his contract after all this contract talk this offseason, joins us now. Jake, help us unpack what is actually going on here with Shemar Stewart.
Nothing really new today, although there was some stirring of the rumor mill. Essentially, this comes down to Shemar Stewart is being offered a contract from the Cincinnati Bengals that breaks their precedent in terms of when the player is in default of the contract and what that means for future guarantees in that contract. And essentially, many teams in the NFL say if you violate your contract and do something that is misconduct so severe that it leads us to consider you in default, in violation of the terms of employment that we've set out in the contract. And the most prominent recent example of this is Jameson Williams, whose guarantees were voided by Detroit after he had disciplinary issues. Then we're going to void all of your future guarantees. Previously, with last year's first-round pick Amarius Mims, 2 years ago Myles Murphy, the Cincinnati Bengals used language that would only void guarantees in the current year of the contract. And there's some suggestion that the Bengals were trying to change this precedent and trying to establish this new language in those deals. Ultimately, were unable to get that agreed to, and that led to different contracts being signed. And Amarius Mims didn't sign his deal last year until right before training camp either. Where Shemar Stewart takes issue is that he doesn't want to be the one for whom the precedent is set. Yeah. Now, the pick before Shemar Stewart this year and the pick after Shemar Stewart this year both reportedly are using future void language in those deals. And like I said, it's very common around the NFL and the Jameson Williams example most prominently recently. But Shemar Stewart doesn't want to be the one that has to be the guy that makes this change. And the Bengals, meanwhile, are modernizing. They're giving out guarantees outside of year one. And so for the first time, this is really relevant to the Bengals because in their history, they generally aren't doing guarantees outside of the first year of deals. And so that's my theory as to why this hasn't come up yet and is now becoming an issue for the Bengals because now all of a sudden they're, because the NFL is going this way, finally forced to do guarantees outside of year one.
Strictly from a football standpoint, there may not be a first-round pick for whom this would be a bigger potential problem in terms of his development than Shemar Stewart, who was a player who in college did not produce a ton, is considered to be a developmental prospect with a really high upside, incredible athletic gifts. And if you're a Bengals fan, you're going, I want this guy on the practice field. I'm sure if you're the coaches, you're going, we want this guy on the practice field. So how do you balance those things if you're Cincinnati? And do you think that's a fair position for, let's say the football people in the building to be taking here?
I think it's absolutely fair from a football perspective, but it doesn't seem like those thoughts have made it to those that are negotiating contracts because this has been an issue for them for years now and for multiple players. And it goes back to, in recent history, Jesse Bates and the eventual departure of Jesse Bates. Last year, Jamar Chase didn't practice for all of training camp. That may have cost them a game in week one against a bad Patriots team where Jamar played and he was good, but by his own admission wasn't ready, wasn't 100% ready. He was fine. He was in shape and everything, but he could have played better, and I think would have played better had he participated in training camp. And they've avoided the drama this year on the offensive side of the ball. But for a guy like Shemar Stewart, especially when you also have drama around Trey Hendrickson, logic would tell you, and I think many fans feel this way and are frustrated this way, and I think rightly so, just let's get the guys on the field as best we can, because we're trying to win some football games. Like we have all these pieces. You have Joe Burrow and all this stuff around him. Let's just do the things we have to do to win football games. And the frustration is that the business is being prioritized over making the football stuff happen so that they have the best chance to win.
What is your expectation for the outcome of and let's lump in the Trey Hendrickson thing. Like how do these things get resolved?
The Bengals have to bend on the Trey Hendrickson idea, I think, if they want him to play the entire season. I think that eventually, even if they don't change his contract at all and he remains on the last year of that deal, he will have to show up eventually unless he's ready to retire from the NFL. If he doesn't show up, Trey Hendrickson, the Bengals will retain his rights next year and they'll be in the same situation with him, except he won't have played a year. So there's no real choice for Trey at some point. At some point, he'll have to either effectively retire or show up. For Shemar Stewart, I think eventually something gets done here. I think this is playing out much more publicly than the Bengals would like it to. And as I've talked about on the Locked On Bengals podcast, we're seeing a lot more of how the sausage is made in terms of how these contract negotiations happen. Last year, Amarius Mims, like I said, didn't sign his contract until mid-July. We're roughly at the same point here for Shemar Stewart, except it's all played out publicly. This may have been the negotiation last year for Amarius Mims, except it happened behind closed doors. We never heard any of the details. This may have been the same for Myles Murphy 2 years ago for the Cincinnati Bengals, and we just didn't hear the details. This time, because it's gone public, it looks much uglier than it otherwise would. It might lead to Shemar Stewart missing some of training camp. Rookies due to report in Cincinnati this weekend. That obviously would be far from ideal. The Bengals incentivized to get it done, again, from a logical perspective, but it's very hard to make firm predictions because of the stubbornness from the front office when challenged, especially on the business side of things.
You can stay up to date all year on the Cincinnati Bengals by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Bengals on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Your Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Trailblazers might have found a diamond in the rough. Before we get to that, the Jets are doling it out for another piece of the core. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? Maybe the Cincinnati Bengals do. With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. New York Jets dropped the bag for Garrett Wilson, and now they've inked another extension with stud cornerback Sauce Gardner.
Let me tell you the biggest reason Sauce Gardner's contract extension is a great move for the New York Jets. The NFL is now a league full of dynamic number one receivers. And because of the way the rules benefit these receivers, you can probably count on one hand the number of elite corners who can match up with them one-on-one. Sauce Gardner is part of this handful of great corners. And this extension means that he will play his prime years in New York with the Jets. This is a big thing for the Jets, particularly because they're switching to an Aaron Glenn style defense, which means they will blitz a lot and play a lot of one-on-one coverage in the back end. And with Sauce Gardner on the defense, they now know they can stop any receiver one-on-one. For more on the Jets, tune into the Locked On Jets podcast with new episodes each Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Chiefs made Trey Smith the highest paid interior offensive lineman in league history.
The Kansas City Chiefs just blew up the guard market by giving Trey Smith a 4-year, $94 million contract, but that's not the key. $70 million guaranteed locks up the interior on the right-hand side for Patrick Mahomes. And that is the job. That is why this happened, to keep Patrick Mahomes happy, comfy, and ready to be all the Mahomes he can be. Trey Smith plays in that plan. He elevates Creed Humphrey as Creed elevates him. They're going to sort out the left-hand side. What used to be Joe Tooney's spot is now likely going to be manned by Kingsley Suamataia, which comes with some of its risks on its own, but the Chiefs are definitely invested into making the most out of their interior offensive line as they continue to look at the tackle position as well. Trey Smith locks that down and keeps you ready for the future. We'll have more of it all on Locked On Chiefs. Make sure you check us out.
And Terry McLaurin's looking around at everybody else getting paid like, what about me?
Garrett Wilson agreed to a 4-year extension with the New York Jets, $112 million, $72 million guaranteed, places him firmly in the top tier wide receiver pay scale, reshapes the financial ceiling for guys like Terry McLaurin. Garrett Wilson now the 5th highest annual average value once his deal goes into place. If Washington wants to keep McLaurin long term, this is going to reinforce the need to give him some money. Garrett Wilson's annual average value, $32.5 million, which is exactly what the floor has been. We've been talking about this. $32.5 million to us has been the floor for Terry McLaurin.
And in baseball, the NL was hoping desperately they could break up the AL dominance in the All-Star game. The Portland Trailblazers made an unusual selection, a polarizing selection when they drafted young Hansen in the first round of the NBA draft. Locked On Blazers host Mike Richmond discusses Hansen's impressive summer league performance and why other NBA teams passed up on a prospect that looks so good.
The question is, how did 15 teams pass on young Hansen? How did so many teams miss on this dude? And I want to unpack all of that because I think that question kind of speaks to where everyone's at as sort of the larger Blazer fan base and like the sort of nature of Summer League and all of the fun stuff that we have seen so far. We will get into all of that and unpack it. It is Hansen Mania, all things Hansen all the time. That's what we're doing on the program. Part of it is just sort of the nature of this time of year, the nature of who the Blazers send to Summer League. They just never send second-year guys because they treat Summer League like punishment or something. But I also like this to me, this is the most... while I am hammering a lot of this and recognize it, I think this is the most intriguing part about the Blazers right now. So I got this question today from listener. They signed their email E-little-td, so ETD. But the way my email service works, I saw their name, but I don't think they want me to share their name. So I'm going to say ETD. Listener ETD asks, and this is going to kind of spawn the whole episode, but I want to set the stage here. Listener ETD asks, after watching 2 games of young Hansen, I am curious how other teams could have missed on him. I know the Trailblazers scouted him heavily over a couple years, but how did so many other NBA teams just miss on his talent? Then there's a couple other paragraphs and then the sentence I like. At this point, 16 doesn't seem like a reach. It seems too low. That's right. Not only was Hansen the selection at 16 too low, was not too low in the draft, other teams should have jumped up higher to take him. That's what listener ETD suggests. I think the answer to this is what I started writing in my notes as twofold. It's twofold. Let me make a couple bullet points. It's like, there's a lot more folds than that. There's several folds. I want to address it from 2 directions. First, I think, is the very simple one. This is like the most simple response to this type of question. It's just too early to take a victory lap. It is not too early to enjoy the Hansen experience. It is not too early to bask in the splendor of a dude his size with the feel and passing skills that he has and kind of like some of the off the dribble interesting game to get into, like to attack from the top of the key, both off the bounce and as a passer, like someone who has this kind of unique skill sets. Like it is not too early to appreciate his talent. But I do think it is simply too early to take it's not too early to appreciate Hansen's potential. It's not too early to appreciate like how fun he has been in those first 2 Summer League games. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it is too early to take a victory lap relative to other draftees. And what I mean by that is like he was taken 16th, and to like look at him play and be like, well, this dude should have gone way higher is like, maybe, right? But I think choosing to do that in the middle of July and judging his career relative to the 15 gentlemen selected before him is just probably a fool's errand, right? It's probably even if you say like, okay, well, not Cooper Flagg, but everybody else, right? It's like, yeah, I bet he, there's a safe bet he will be, there'll be someone who goes in the first 15 picks ahead of him who just like is not an NBA player. He's just like not an NBA dude. That's just kind of how it works in every year in the draft. So like, yeah, maybe you'll be able to point to someone very clearly as soon as 2 seasons into the Hansen experience and say like, haha, gotcha. But I would say in general, it's like it is a safer move to appreciate Hansen in a smaller, more contained space than vis-a-vis other NBA teams' choices. Because first of all, comparison is a thief of joy, and second of all, it's just we're just so early into this. I will say it does seem like don't overreact is something that people apply to summer league unless the player plays well. If a guy struggles, they're like, now, let's not overreact. Everyone has bad games in summer league. It's okay. But if someone plays well, myself included, right? Like Hansen had a really nice debut, like a really fun, intriguing, like exciting debut. And I was like, shoot, I'm going to record a bonus episode and like, and overreact a little bit. The title of the episode was something along the lines of "Let's overreact to one game," right? Like I am joining you in this boat, right? I'm not holier than thou. I'm saying like this is just kind of the nature of us, the way we watch sports, basketball fans in general. I do think we've seen enough of Hansen to know a couple things. He's really stinking big and he's really skilled. He also is going to have some challenges in the NBA, right? Like against NBA level competition. I think lateral quickness, while it hasn't showed up much in summer league yet, there's been a few moments where it's just been like whoop, and somebody beats him, and he's a little jumpy on pump fakes. But like I think against high level NBA guards, right? Like I think we just haven't seen him play anyone who's Jalen Wells is a pretty good small forward-ish guy who they hope can play shooting guard this year. But lateral quickness, I think defensive positioning, and just getting stronger, physically stronger, and getting his certainly getting in better shape. Some of those challenges are just very normal for a 20-year-old rookie, right? It's like, yeah, he's 20 years old. Of course, he has some defensive, like positional stuff where it's just like he's close, he's kind of in the right spot, but he's not like. He's not there. He's not all the way. He needs to be a half a step further, or it's like he's just reacting a little bit late because he's trying to read too many things. Like, yeah, defensive positioning usually like comfort, feel, your positioning gets better. Maybe not your overall like defensive acumen. Obviously, some guys are just bad on defense. I'm not sure Hansen's ever going to be an elite defender, but certainly like big dudes who are smart can be good defenders fairly easily. And defensive positioning is something you get with time. Strength is something you can get with time. Like it's like. Some of the stuff is just like the nature of being, the nature of making this transition from a teenager playing in the CBA in China to a 20-year-old trying to find his footing in the league, right? Like some of that is just very believable natural progression.
Stay up to date all year on the Portland Trailblazers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Blazers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, Scottie Scheffler is struggling to find fulfillment in winning. Scottie Scheffler is chasing history this week at Royal Portrush, but he's wrestling with something a little deeper than lifting trophies. On the verge of possibly winning his 4th major and inching closer to the career Grand Slam, Scheffler admitted that the euphoria of reaching the top is not as satisfying as he once imagined.
It feels like you work your whole life to celebrate winning a tournament for like a few minutes. It only lasts a few minutes, that kind of euphoric feeling. And I like to win the Byron Nelson Championship at home. I literally worked my entire life to become good at golf, to have an opportunity to win that tournament. And you win it, you celebrate, get to hug my family, my sister's there. It's such an amazing moment. And then it's like, okay, now what are we going to eat for dinner? Is it great to be able to win tournaments and to accomplish the things I have in the game of golf? Yeah. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes just to think about, because it's literally worked my entire life to become good at this sport, and to have that kind of sense of accomplishment, I think is a pretty cool feeling. It's fulfilling from the sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of like the deepest, places of your heart. There's a lot of people that make it to what they thought was going to fulfill them in life, and then you get there and all of a sudden you get to number 1 in the world, and then they're like, what's the point? And I really do believe that, because what is the point? You're like, why do I want to win this tournament so bad? That's something that I wrestle with on a daily basis. I'm kind of a sicko. I love putting in the work. I love being able to practice. I love getting out to live out my dreams. But at the end of the day, sometimes I just don't understand the point. I love the challenge. I love being able to play this game for a living. It's one of the greatest joys of my life. But does it fill the deepest, wants and desires of my heart? Absolutely not. I love being a father. I love being able to take care of my son. I love being able to provide for my family out here playing golf. And, every day when I wake up early to go put in the work, my wife thanks me for going out and working so hard. And when I get home, I try and thank her every day for taking care of our son. It's just, that's why I talk about families being my priority, because it really is. I'm blessed to be able to come out here and play golf, but if my golf ever started affecting my home life, or it ever affected the relationship I have with my wife or with my son, that's going to be the last day that I play out here for a living. I would much rather be a great father than I would be a great golfer. That at the end of the day, that's what's more important.
We hear this from athletes all the time. Cooper Kupp talked about how winning the Super Bowl was not as gratifying as the journey toward it. And this doesn't have to be one big cliche about the real win was the friends we made along the way. That's not what we're talking about here. But when you win as much as Scottie Scheffler does, and when you get paid as much as Scottie Scheffler does, even when you don't win, it changes the perspective in all of this. I'll give you a great example. It had been my dream my whole life to cover an NFL draft in person. In 2014, I got the opportunity to do that at Radio City Music Hall in New York City. It was coincidentally the last NFL draft at Radio City Music Hall in New York City. That was a long time ago, over a decade ago, and I'm still doing this. I had to find other things that fulfilled me after I reached my dream. After you win, what do? You have to find joy in the work, in the process of grinding, of getting better. And that is not always easy. That's true in professional sports. It's true in all walks of life. Is it a little bit of a flex that he doesn't know what to do about the fact that the wins don't feel the same to him anymore? Come on. If you'd never won, winning would still feel pretty damn good, like all the time. But that's why the phrase is heavy is the head that wears the crown. It is a burden at times to be as great as someone like Scottie Scheffler. And I love that he's offering us this insight into his psyche, into finding the joy, finding fulfillment outside of work too, because that's part of this. It's not that the wins don't make him feel great anymore. It's that he's got a child. He's got a family that also fills him with joy. And so how do you calibrate that? It's something that I think everyone can find a piece to relate to in all of that. And finally, you won't find the claret jug on display in Xander Schauffele's home, or much else really. The reigning Open champion, who returned to Royal Portrush this week, lives as modestly as he swings. No trophy case, no shrine to past victories, not even a clue where his Olympic gold medal is. His wife hung one photo of him winning so high he can't even reach it. As Schauffele said, he had it his way, the walls would be bare or filled with dog portraits. Maybe just a clock. Sounds like he and Scheffler might have something to talk about if they end up getting paired this weekend. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you at the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, can Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns live up to the hype? Yeah, it's almost college football time, people. So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.